there is no like a horse. Well, it's been a lot of hard work finishing up Avatar month for the past month and a half that I haven't been able to do anything in the past month and a half. So, I guess it's time to catch up on some world events. You know, what could possibly have gone wrong in the world in the past month and a half?
I got every problem with the government saying we can't go out. That's a prohibition.
We begin tonight with startling new evidence that America's fight against the coronavirus is far from over.
Accuser of the fucking brethren, you motherfucker!
Oh. Yo, like, I'm honestly trying to get shot in the mouth right now. Like, I really just want to be killed in the street. Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of everyone's favorite show in the end of the world, Internet Idiocracy. I'm your host with the most, the clout god himself, MattCMG, and today, let's talk about cancel culture. Like I mentioned in a previous episode, the advent of the internet has made it so that we're more connected to each other than ever, and as much as the internet is a blessing, it's just as much of a curse. With the internet, we have quick and easy communication with whoever we want, an endless amount of free entertainment, important world events as they happen, and are able to fact check ourselves with the click of a button. And for people like me and other content creators, the internet is a great way to make money either as a side hustle or as a full-time career. The internet is fucking great, and I could not possibly imagine my life without it. But at the same time, the internet can show us some of the worst parts of humanity. And I ain't just talking about snuff videos on fucking Lively. Everybody has a voice now, and while you might think that that's for the better, it's mostly for the worse. The internet age has given a lot of people with a lot of extra time on their hands something to do with it, and most of the time, it's the most vapid shit you could possibly imagine. We've got stuff like stan accounts on Twitter and Instagram that are just the dumbest way of wasting time. Redditors with their shitty low-effort memes that are also a complete waste of time. Political discourse just being the absolute worst in general. It's all a result of people having a lot of free time and nothing to do, and wasting said time on the internet with pointless garbage. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think the internet is making us stupider or anything. In fact, I always think back to what Filthy Frank said in regards to this.
Now I believe there have always been stupid people, but the internet provides greater opportunity for stupidity to be expressed and paraded. In this day and age with the internet, ignorance is a choice, and they're still choosing ignorance.
But the internet has become a major part of everyone's everyday lives, and if you spend enough time on here, you're bound to lose at least a few brain cells. Enter cancel culture. Cancel culture is a term coined by some fucking person to describe this weird internet subculture of a group of people banding together to try to end the career of someone for saying or doing something problematic. And just so you guys know, I hate the word problematic, but it makes sense, it fits in the script. Fuck you. You can easily identify cancel culture in a number of ways, but it usually comes in the form of a hashtag on Twitter along the lines of hashtag blank is over party, where those people are celebrating the end of this person's career. Now this may be an unpopular opinion, but depending on the context, I think it's totally justified for somebody to be canceled for some bullshit that they said or did. But that really only applies in the worst case scenarios, like the people who have actually committed criminal offenses. I am all for holding people accountable for their past actions, but cancel culture becomes toxic when people go out of their way and specifically look for things to be mad about and for things to ruin people's careers over. It gets even worse when you realize that some of the things that people are getting their careers ruined over are some cringy joke from years ago, sometimes from before that person even had a following, usually from a time where what they said or did was considered acceptable, and then the cancelers assuming that the cancelee hasn't changed with the times or changed at all with that time within that time frame. Today, I wanted to go through some key examples of cancel culture to really see the nuance in action. Today, we'll be taking a look at some of the most prominent cancellations of public figures throughout the years, determining which ones are justified, which ones aren't, and which are just plain stupid. Smash that motherfucking like button. Let's get weird, let's get wild, and let's get canceled. Wait, no, you sons of bitches, don't cancel.
Let's bring in our next guest, comedian Louis C.K., whom some might describe as an aficionado of masturbation.
When I think of some of my favorite stand-up comedians, I always think of the likes of Bill Burr, Tom Segura, Dave Chappelle, that one Childish Gambino stand-up special, and even comedians like Eric Andre have recently made the transition into stand-up. And of course, there's the likes of the great George Carlin. But someone I always need to be careful in putting on that list is Louis C.K. Louis C.K. was a hilarious comedian. He had some really funny takes on some otherwise serious issues. he could make you laugh at pretty much anything. He was the prime example of offensive humor done correctly, where he's not just saying outlandish shit for the shock value or just for the sake of being outlandish. He's actually making a point while he's saying these outlandish and offensive things. Those are oftentimes the best comedians out there, the kind that can make very valid points about life and about, you know, certain topics while making you laugh about them at the same time. In terms of comedy, Louis C.K. was the closest thing we had to a modern day George Carlin. So much so that he actually spoke about and paid homage to Carlin at a tribute after his passing. Not only was Louis an influential comedian, but he also carried the styles and legacies of past comedians with him. But one day, that all changed. I'm trying to be dramatic, I'm trying to be epic, I'm trying to be cool, I'm hip with the kids. In 2015, some rumors surfaced that Louis had done some very sus things, namely whipping his dick out and masturbating in front of women in what I can only assume are business meetings. CK at first denied these rumors, but as more women came out with stories against him over the years, he eventually admitted that he did, in fact, jerk off in front of these women. We'd be here forever if I went into vivid detail for each instance of him doing this, but it doesn't excuse the fact that what he did was clearly sexual misconduct, and he clearly should not have done it. It is worthy of noting, however, that CK did apologize to a few of these women privately, and they forgave him for it years before these stories went public. And when he did finally come out and admit to it publicly, he admitted that he did in fact abuse his power and influence to do what he did. But by the time these stories came out, the damage had already been done. The court of public opinion had completely turned on Louis. Any projects he had in the works were cancelled, and his career was more or less ruined for a few years. Eventually, Louis would try to make a return to stand-up, with many of his contemporaries actually supporting him. And I think the reason that this was allowed to happen and that he was able to come back and overcome this cancellation was that he was very transparent and very genuine when showing remorse for his actions, which you don't always see nowadays when people get canceled. Usually when people are canceled for something, they give this paint-by-numbers cliche response along the lines of like, I was in a dark place, I am trying to do better and be a better person, all while beating around the bush and avoiding the actual problem. CK's response wasn't all that different. In fact, he was one of the first to use this kind of response, but I think the difference here is that while most of these celebrities beat around the bush when apologizing, Louis actually meant it. He actually showed remorse for his actions, which is corroborated by the fact that he did in fact privately apologize to these women before he ever made such an apology. Louis C.K. was undeniably canceled, but he was able to overcome it because he wasn't apologizing just for PR. He actually meant what he was saying. He was actually trying to show that he knew what the problem was, and he knew that he was in the wrong, and that he is trying to change for the better, and that he probably already had changed for the better by the time he made that apology. Louis C.K. is proof that you can overcome your cancellation if you acknowledge the problem and you genuinely try to change your ways. There are genuinely very few people that are beyond redemption, and this seems to be something that modern day cancel culture doesn't seem to understand. The reason I bring up Louis in this video is that he was the first instance, at least that I can remember, where a public figure was canceled before the concept of canceling someone was really a thing. Of course, this case was also heavily intertwined with the Me Too movement, but that's beside the point. That's a story for a different day. I highly doubt that Louis C.K. will ever be able to truly live this down, and while people were totally right to hold him accountable for his actions, people should also be able to see that he's a changed person and that they should be able to move past this fuckery, for lack of a better term.
Meme machine, meme machine. I'm a motherfucking meme machine.
When George Miller, aka Joji, first made the transition away from Filthy Frank and towards mainstream music, I knew for a fact that one day a bunch of Zoomers would eventually discover who Filthy Frank is and try to cancel Joji over it. I knew this was gonna happen from the day he stepped away from Filthy Frank and became Joji. I just knew it. I predicted it. I am a prophet, a messiah, in fact. What I didn't predict, however, was that this day would come as soon as it did. In May of 2020, a tweet came out with a video of Pink Guy's song White is Right off of Pink Season, where he says the N-word repeatedly with the hard R. To anyone with a functioning brain, this song is obvious satire, making fun of the racist Southern hicks that exist out there. But of course, these 14-year-old K-pop stans heard the N-word, disregarded the context, and assumed that this was actually Joji directly trying to insult black people, which is obviously not the case. As a result, hashtag Joji is over party began trending and subsequently failed miserably when pretty much every YouTuber and meme lover alike banded together to point out how absolutely fucking dumb this is. Joji didn't end up facing any major consequences for this and is happily going on about his career to this day. Comically large Joji spoon. What these stans failed to understand was that Filthy Frank and Pink Guy have always been characters meant to satirize internet culture. These are characters, and do not represent the views of the person playing those characters. You don't see people getting mad at Leonardo DiCaprio for saying the N-word in Django Unchained, because he's obviously playing a character. The character's views don't represent the actor's views. Filthy Frank being an internet character doesn't change those rules. Joji himself has confirmed this on multiple occasions, to the point where the official Filthy Frank YouTube channel has a disclaimer in the About section that reads, "Filthy Frank is the embodiment of everything a person should not be. This terrible offensiveness is a deliberate parody of the whole social media scene." And I can only assume that the reason Joji didn't actually respond to any of this backlash was because of this disclaimer. I think that Joji is a prime example of when cancel culture fails to achieve its goal. And I think the reason Joji got away with it was because he didn't give the people canceling him any more ammo to fire back at him. By not responding and staying silent about it, Joji effectively waited out the storm. Now, this strategy won't always work. For example, if Louis C.K. did this, his career probably would not have been able to recover. So I think the only way this strategy can work is when you know that you're in the right and when you know that the internet has your back. If you know for a fact that you didn't do anything wrong, then don't say anything, and especially don't send out a forced apology if you don't actually mean it. Joji Spoon! Comically large Joji Spoon! I'm really trying to get this fucking Joji Spoon though.
Every
this,
fucking
I'm
week at
about
Olive
to
Garden,
my
the
fucking
breadsticks are
hands
only
up.
good for like
I'm
the
now
first
starting
week,
my
and after
fucking
that,
self.
This one is more of a YouTube feud than it is an example of cancel culture, but there were attempts to cancel each other during it, and it hasn't quite ended yet, so I'm gonna have an excuse to talk about it anyways. So let's talk about H3 Productions versus Keemstar, namely Keemstar. People have actually attempted to cancel Keemstar multiple times over the years, and honestly, I really can't blame them, because he's done some pretty reprehensible shit that he has never apologized for. Two of the first big exposed videos on Keem were Leafy's Keemstar rant and iDubbbz's Content Cop back in 2016, both of which were great videos that showed how not good of a person Keemstar really is. Yet despite being outed as a complete scumbag not just once, not just twice, but more than that, many times, multiple times, he somehow comes out of this situation and the numerous others over the years completely unscathed. I'm not sure how that happened, because everybody just kind of forgets about it in a week. Fast forward to now in 2020, aka 2016 Part 2, and Ethan Klein, aka H3 Productions, dropped his content nuke on Keemstar, which was an okay video. A lot of it is regurgitating shit from iDubbbz's video, and the new stuff that Ethan did add was either poorly researched or poorly worded, namely a lot of the Etika stuff. At this time, however, Ethan was no saint either, since he'd been catching scrutiny over the years for things he said and done on his podcast, which is why when Ethan made some slip-ups, people were right to call him out on them. Specifically when he hinted at taking away Keemstar sponsors. Long story short, both of these guys fucking hate each other, both have tried to cancel the other by going after each other's livelihoods, and both have done some pretty shitty things that they should definitely be held accountable for. But if I honestly had to pick a side, I think I'm Team H3 on this one, boys. Ethan is obviously not the best person in the world, nor does he have the same respect in the YouTube community as he once did. In fact, I happen to agree with many of the criticisms of the guy from Gokunaru and Turkey Tom's videos, but I think the difference between Ethan and Keem is that Ethan at least pretends he's trying to change for the better. He at least pretends to care even when he clearly doesn't. Keemstar has always been a douche, and not even a lovable douche. Because even when Keem is completely in the wrong, he will never own up to it and he just doubles down. Even when he is unequivocally being the asshole in the situation. Redditors be like, I just shot my son. Am I the asshole? The only situation that I can think of where Keemstar actually apologized for any of his wrongdoings was when he falsely accused that RuneScape streamer of being a pedophile. And even then, it was more so, sorry I got the story wrong, and less of a, sorry I falsely accused you of being a pedophile. When Keemstar faces scrutiny, he does the absolute bare minimum to weasel his way out of it, which is usually just enough for the YouTube community and his fans to not think he's a total asshole. He does just enough to where you forget how bad of a person he is, and his friends and fans, and namely the commentary community as a whole, enable him when he does this. But I guess to bring this back to the topic at hand, both Ethan and Keemstar have both been cancelled multiple times, each for things they've done and said in their past, both coming out relatively unscathed each time. The difference is that the shit people have tried to cancel Ethan over are minor issues at worst that he's either apologized for or disproved completely, while the shit people have tried to cancel Keem for are major issues, sometimes life-ruining, many of which there are really no good excuses for. Who in the fuck said you could go into sleep mode, you diabolical bitch. Based on how they've handled past situations, Ethan is someone who definitely needs to be held accountable for his shitty actions, no doubt. But Keemstar, I think, deserves to be cancelled for his, as they are often way worse and he shows absolutely no signs of changing for the better. This is one of the very rare instances where I will say that a cancellation trying to end somebody's career is completely justified. Bro, like if you could make Too Mad, a living meme, Mr. Goodnight Girl himself, make a serious video calling you out, you know you fucked up. You know you've definitely taken a wrong turn somewhere in your life.
A hero who deserves our recognition. The elongated man.
Oh fuck, I'm looking like Jimmy Neutron right now with this hair. Jesus H. Now this next cancellation might be a bit niche to some of you, but I'm a really big fan of the Flash TV show. Say what you will about DC, the Arrowverse, or the CW, but I like The Flash. I think it's a great show. One of The Flash's main allies on the show is Ralph Dibny, the elongated man, played by actor Hartley Sawyer. He was introduced in the show's 4th season as this sleazebag private investigator, but over the years he has learned to be a team player and a stand-up guy. In the most recent season, Ralph even had his own storyline about how he meets his wife Sue, which is adapted from a comic book storyline called Identity Crisis, which is very popular amongst DC Comics fans and would be the first time that this storyline had been adapted into live action. Ralph had become a character that fans of The Flash had really grown to love, and people who worked with Hartley Sawyer had nothing but good things to say about him. However, on June 8th, 2020, that all came crashing down. On that day, it was announced by showrunner Eric Wallace that Hartley Sawyer had been fired from his job playing Ralph on The Flash. This came as a surprise to many, since Ralph was a fan favorite character and was in the middle of his own storyline, which was already cut short due to COVID-19. The reason for his termination? Some off-color tweets from 2014. Obvious joke tweets, but off-color nonetheless. Some of those tweets read as follows. Take it away, first take, Matt. Out at dinner and just exposed myself as a racist. Again! The only thing stopping me from doing mildly racist tweets is the knowledge that Al Sharpton would never stop complaining about me. If I had a wife, I would beat the hell out of her tonight, lol. As a lad, one of my favorite activities was kidnapping homeless women and cutting off their breasts. Jesus fuck, dude. I think I could work at a tit factory and be pretty happy. Yo, low-key, like say, enjoyed his secret boob viewing at an audition today. Ooh, okay, that one's a yikes. That one's a major yikes. I think the irony of Sawyer's firing comes from how his character was on The Flash. Like I hinted at earlier, Ralph started off as a sleazebag, not a good guy, but it was Team Flash that took him in, gave him a chance, and eventually he turned over a new leaf. Why is it that his character is allowed to change as a person, but the person playing him isn't? Ain't that a little bit ironic? Obviously, these tweets are pretty fucking edgy, you know, a little bit fucked up, as it were. But they're clearly just jokes. Like, obviously they're jokes. Like, just because you joke about being outed as a racist doesn't mean that you're actually a racist. You know, just because you joke about beating your wife doesn't mean that you actually beat your wife. Are these jokes a little bit insensitive to people who have actually faced racism or who have actually faced domestic abuse? Sure, people have every right to be offended by these jokes. I personally found some of them pretty funny. Like the domestic abuse one, you know, obviously the joke is that nobody would actually tweet something like this unironically and end it with a lol. That's clearly the joke. But you gotta admit, I guess it's a little bit tasteless. Even I can admit that. People who have worked with Hartley Sawyer, people who know him personally, have come out and said that he's actually a super nice dude. He just likes edgy humor. I don't think he should have been fired for these tweets because they are clearly just jokes. Granted, they were extremely edgy even by 2014 standards. But it's been 6 years. Why is Ralph Dibny allowed to change in less time, but Hartley Sawyer isn't? And for this final section of the video, since there are so many public figures who have been cancelled over the years, I can't feasibly talk about all of them, so I thought that we'd do a little bit of a cancellation lightning round, as it were, where we'll look at a bunch of public figures who have been cancelled for different things, and I'll tell you if I think their cancellation was justified or not. Now start that timer that I'm sure is definitely not gonna have any purpose in this video at all. And let's go. Popular YouTuber Pro Jared was cancelled for supposedly cheating on his wife and knowingly sending nude photos of himself to minors. The entire internet turned on him before any evidence actually came out, but once evidence finally did come out, we learned that the cheating and pedophilia was all bullshit, while Jared did in fact admit to sending nudes to fans and apologized for it. I think this case shows us how quickly the internet can turn on someone, and that by the time that they are able to clear their name, the internet has usually made their decision and moved on. Pro Jared definitely deserves to be held accountable for the things he did, like his weird exchanging nudes with fans thing. That's really fucking weird and creepy. But since everything else was proven false, he did not deserve to be canceled. Like, even his own friends didn't reach out to him to get his side of the story when he was first canceled. They all just jumped on the cancellation, train. And I think that's a little bit fucked up. Tekashi 6ix9ine is a rapper known for being complete garbage at rapping, yet as it turns out, he's also a complete garbage person. Having been convicted of pedophilia, ordering a shooting on Chief Keef, domestic abuse, and a ton of other heinous actions that he's been charged and found guilty of in a court of law. The internet didn't take too kindly to any of this, and over the years, multiple hashtags were trending and to try to end his career. How he's still able to have a career after this is baffling to me, but the internet did mostly turn on him. Nobody really likes him anymore outside of being good meme material. So I think this cancellation is definitely justified. A person with a past this fucked up and who shows no sign of changing doesn't deserve a career. Unless he can somehow change and stop doing heinous shit like this when he gets out of prison, he doesn't deserve a career. Fuck him. It seems like every other month people try to cancel PewDiePie over something, and a few years ago it seemed like it was a daily occurrence. From saying the N-word with a hard R on stream,
What a fucking
to a slew of anti-Semitic and Nazi-related jokes, PewDiePie is no stranger to controversy. This is another instance where I think he should definitely be held accountable. He should not have said the N-word in that way, or really at all for that matter, but he should be allowed to fix that mistake and to better himself. While he should never have to apologize or be held accountable for some edgy jokes, even if they were in pretty bad taste. The problem with PewDiePie doesn't lie in his jokes, but rather the fact that he enables, whether that be intentionally or not, some pretty fringe talking points. He should definitely be held accountable for that. As cringe as I think PewDiePie is, I don't think that he should have been canceled for these things. Held accountable? Yes. People should definitely be putting pressure on him to be a better person because of his influence on the internet, but I don't think he should be canceled outright for all of it. Robert Downey Jr. is most well known for playing Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but before he did that, he did a little movie called Tropic Thunder. You may have heard of it. In this movie, RDJ, a white man, played a black man. Rather, he is a white guy playing a black guy. Movie's kind of weird, but you can probably guess where this is going. Bunch of people who I can only assume had never heard of Tropic Thunder, so they're probably all Zoomers, found out about Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface for this movie, labeling him a racist for it. What these Zoomers failed to realize, however, is that Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface in this movie was satire on why blackface is wrong. And I think that making fun of blackface is really the only situation in which it's actually acceptable to do blackface. For instance, when Always Sunny featured blackface, the joke was always that it was an extremely poor taste that they were doing blackface.
Well, I seriously regret switching parts with you halfway through and letting you play Murtaugh in blackface. I feel like it was in very poor taste in retrospect.
And I don't think Tropic Thunder is any different. The point of that character in Tropic Thunder was that he was a white actor taking away a role from a black actor, which is directly commented on by Brandon T. Jackson's character in the movie.
And why am I in this movie? Maybe I just knew I had to represent. Because they had one good part in for a black man, they gave it to Crocodile Dundee.
This is obvious satire that these people completely missed. Robert Downey Jr. did not deserve this attempted cancellation, especially when he's proven already that he's a guy capable of change with his very troubled past before getting back into acting. Shane Dawson is one of the few YouTubers that have been around since the very start, and when you've been around for that long, chances are that you're gonna have some skeletons in your closet that are gonna come back to bite you in the ass. In Shane's case, it was a slew of old offensive jokes and videos that got people to attempt to cancel him multiple times. A few years ago, it was a few pedophile jokes on his podcast, and apparently nutting on his cat, which is pretty fucking bizarre. While a lot of the more recent stuff comes from some old videos of his where he did blackface, and a lot more pedophile jokes coming out as well. One of which revolving around Willow Smith, which caught the attention of the rest of the Smith family. As you could have guessed, Shane used to be pretty fucking edgy, which is totally fine, I think. I, for one, love edgy humor when it's done correctly and tastefully. But when you look at some of Shane's old stuff, it's pretty tasteless.
Oh no! Oh no!
Like, he did not have to do blackface here, but like, he did it anyways. Like, what the fuck? As for the pedophile jokes, they're equally as tasteless, but they're just harmless jokes. And the stuff from his podcast where he tries to defend pedophilia, obviously playing devil's advocate as a joke, clearly didn't have the intended result. Shane has already apologized for all of this multiple times, though he was also intertwined with some makeup community bullshit at the same time as his most recent apology, but I couldn't be fucked to really care about any of that, so But regardless, Shane has mentioned on multiple occasions that he knows how edgy he used to be, and that he knows how bad those jokes were, and that he no longer stands by anything he says in his old videos. Coming from me, speaking as a YouTuber, if you can watch your old videos and cringe at them, that means you're growing as a creator. And I think the same goes for people in general. If you can look into your past and cringe at the stuff that you used to do or that you used to find funny, then that's a sign that you've grown as a person and that you've matured. Much like PewDiePie, I don't think that Shane Dawson should have been canceled for any of these jokes because they clearly don't represent his current views. And he's already held himself accountable for them. What I do think he should be canceled for, or rather held accountable for, is generally being a not so good person even today, but that's beside the point. Plus, come on, the dude is rich as fuck. Do you really think he's going anywhere? Come on. James Gunn is a director and writer best known for his work on the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and for a little while it seemed like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 wasn't going to happen. You see, in 2018, some old tweets surfaced where Gunn made an exceptionally large amount of and pedophile jokes. Similarly to Shane Dawson, these were obvious jokes made in pretty poor taste and clearly don't represent his actual views, but regardless of the context, James Gunn was fired from Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but later found refuge in Warner Brothers working on the Suicide Squad reboot. After the initial backlash causing him to be fired, even more backlash came afterwards that got him rehired. It's kinda wild. I don't think that he deserved to lose his job over those cringy jokes that no sane person would actually stand behind unironically, but luckily the court of public opinion shifted once more people came out in support of Gunn, resulting in his rehiring with Disney. He was cancelled by one group, but an even larger group got him uncancelled, which I think is proof that logic can prevail. Almost the entire competitive Super Smash Bros. Community recently cancelled themselves, because apparently a bunch of them were filthy fucking pedophiles. Obviously, not the kind of people we want playing a children's game, and obviously not the kind of people Nintendo wants to associate with. What's weird I think about the Smash community stuff is that many of them came out on their own to admit their wrongdoings, yet they always end their statement with something along the lines of, "I'm taking a break from the internet," as if that's going to somehow make them not a pedophile. It comes across as them trying to cancel themselves and not have to deal with as much backlash as they would have gotten if they hadn't come out and other people canceled them for it first. You know, they're trying to dodge the bullet before the gun even fires, but they still get fucking grazed. I guarantee you that a lot of these competitive Smash players are going to try to make a comeback within the next few years, hoping that people forget about the fact that they're a bunch of subhuman fucking pedophiles. And knowing the internet, it's probably gonna work, and we probably shouldn't let that happen, just a thought. And lastly, let's take a look at, well, fucking everybody. Chris Evans, Drake Bell, Taylor Swift, every fucking celebrity under the sun has been canceled at some point. It seems like there does not exist a single celebrity or public figure who the masses have not tried to cancel before, whether that be for a cringy joke or for an actual offense. I think the point is, this is just something that public figures are gonna have to deal with now going forward. Not everybody's gonna like you, and some of those people are gonna go out of their way to find some dirt on you and find a reason to hate you. Sometimes the cancellations are totally justified, especially when these people have committed actual criminal offenses and have shown no sign of changing. You know, I'm sure nobody wants, 6ix9ine or Bill Cosby or Harvey Weinstein to have careers anymore because of what they did. But there are other instances where the only thing these people are guilty of are making some bad jokes or not coming out with evidence soon enough. And those people definitely shouldn't deserve to lose their livelihoods over that. It's the job of the public to be able to differentiate what does and does not qualify as a cancelable offense, and ironically, the people who actively participate in cancel culture just can't tell the difference.
You've been cancelled, you've been cancelled, you've been cancelled. Get to the back of the queue.
So I think as we've seen today, it's clear that many of the people who have been cancelled over the years didn't deserve it, as many of them were over old jokes and old tweets that are deemed offensive by today's standards, and the court of public opinion either let these people keep their careers or they heavily opposed their cancellation. On the other hand, there have been several prominent figures who deserved to be cancelled, people who are complete scumbags and have zero chance of changing their ways, yet for whatever reason, we typically forget about it in a week and let them continue on being scumbags. For every person who was cancelled and didn't deserve it, there are just as many who did deserve it but got away with it. I think this ultimately proves how useless the cancel culture phenomenon is. It rarely works, and when it does work, it rarely sticks. The goal of cancel culture as it exists now is to destroy and ruin the person's career, when the real goal should be to hold these people accountable, educate them, and reform them if possible. Even then, many of these people are being canceled over offensive jokes and other harmless things, while people who actually deserve to be canceled for doing genuinely heinous things, have never faced backlash for it in their fucking lives. Again, people should totally hold other people, especially public figures, accountable for the shitty things they've said or done. But at the same time, you should also be able to acknowledge that those people are capable of changing, at least unless they've demonstrated that they aren't. Additionally, context and intent are major factors that should be considered, but for whatever reason are often ignored completely by these cancel culture vultures. You know, Louis C.K. whipping his dick out and jerking it during a business meeting is fucked up and he shouldn't have done it. He should be held accountable for it and should be allowed to change for the better because of it. But that is nowhere near the same as, you know, Hartley Sawyer making a few edgy tweets or Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface for Tropic Thunder. And speaking of Tropic Thunder, I think if there's anything you guys take away from today's video, it's that you never go full retard. But that's gonna be all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I certainly enjoyed making it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you guys think of cancel culture? I genuinely like to know what you all think. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more bullshit like this. I've been MattCMG. I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching. Hang on, I'm getting a phone call. Let me open. Yo.
Hey, bruh.
Oh, what's going on, Cap?
Hey, yo, bruh. Just check Twitter, bruh. You just got canceled, bruh.
What? The fuck are you talking about?
I don't know, man. Just the social media. They said MattCMG canceled. I don't know what to tell you, bruh.
What do you mean I'm canceled?
I don't know, bruh. I think you don't got enough clout.
You son of a bitch!
I'm getting canceled. I gotta be careful. Everybody coming at me like I got my hands full. I'm getting canceled. Ain't no